Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Engage. I'm going to be talking about messaging today, and I'm picking my words carefully. I'm not talking about SMS, I'm talking about messaging in particular. But this is a backdrop. CloudCall is probably best known for our telephony integration. But I really want to explain the fundamental belief of the company, which is behind everything we do. And that is that data and communications need to link. At the simplest level, this does it really quite well. If I explain what I mean, you've got a database in here. You've got your address book. You've also got a phone. So when a phone call comes in, you can see who's calling you. Nobody knows what a phone number is anymore. No one knows. People don't remember people's phone numbers. If you send a text to somebody, you can see who they are and you see it coming back again. And if you take that principle and apply it across all communications and with a CRM, then that's, I think, where a lot of magic starts to happen. But I'm going to talk about telco just a little bit, but all these rules, I believe, should apply to messaging in exactly the same way. It's because by linking the communications and the data together, there's a whole world of stuff that comes out of it. Our salespeople will talk about increase of ROI and click-to-call and ease and speed and the rest of it. And that's all true. But to my mind, it's all actually about the BI, the business intelligence that comes out of it. It improves productivity, it helps customer experience, and it helps the candidate experience as well. And let me just give some examples of what I'm talking about. On the phone call side again, how many complaint letters do you think include the phrase, "they promised to call me back and never did"? We know. If you made a call outcome, call someone back and you haven't done, you may have tried to get through. We know you didn't get through because it was engaged. It could be, I know, for instance, how many of our salespeople or how many of our account managers haven't spoken to a customer in the last 6 weeks, which ones they've spoken to, because we're linking the communications and the data. It could be things such as any customer of ours that rings our tech support team more than 4 times in a month, we put an at-risk program. Why? There's a problem here. We're going to look at them much more closely. But again, the only reason I know that is because we've linked the communications and the data together. That is true of messaging, but messaging has a problem for it. But just sort of moving on to messaging per se, there is, we'll all agree, there is just the rise and rise and rise of messaging. There's a whole silent conversation going on. I mean, you don't need to be a teenager or have teenage children to know what I'm talking about, but the way people are communicating is definitely changing. There's one statistic to take away from this. In the last 10 years, the volume of messages have increased by nearly 8,000%. Actually, I'm going to ask a question. How many of you, put your hands up, sent a message by sitting here before we started speaking? Wow, okay. Wonder how many more it'll be by the end of it. It's a worrying thought. But people are messaging each other rather than talking. And that's what you've got to bear in mind. And it's not equal. This is being particularly driven by youth. And you'll see this chart, probably not with little ladies with red hair on, anywhere on the internet. And I think it's fascinating. In the same way as you can take a tree and see how many rings it is to find out how old it is, or look in a horse's mouth and count its teeth, if you actually know how many messages someone sends each day, you can tell how old they are. And it's the young ones that are doing it. It's the millennials that are driving it. If you look at it, typically, they're sending over 100 messages a day. And just think about your own lives. How many of you are doing exactly the same thing? How many messages are you sending now in comparison to where you were? Okay, and I'm not going to talk about millennials too much, but this is, I think, quite important. What is a millennial? It's if you're born between 1980 and 2000 is the typical thing people say. But they are 37% of today's workforce. In the next 6 or 7 years, that'll be over 70%. They are your staff. They're your candidates. They are your customers. Okay, and they're the future. Okay, and this lot love messaging. There's some lovely statistics out there. 40% of them prefer talking to a chatbot than a human being is one of my favorite ones. Okay, and there's this thing about 65% of people prefer messaging to a phone call. But actually, let's put it the other way round. A lot of them prefer texting to phone calls. They don't like phone calls. And etiquette is changing. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have been standing here with a tie and a suit on talking to you. 5 years ago, I would be wearing a suit with no tie. I mean, there isn't a single tie I can see in the room here. And don't think that millennials can't change how communications work per se. And I'm not talking about the telex, okay? But if you things like voicemail, and how many of your salespeople or recruiters leave voicemails for people? There's a lovely statistic out there that last year there was 10% less voicemails dropped. But far more interesting is 18% less voicemails picked up. And if you go back to your mobile phone again, actually I will look at mine and tell you, how many of you got voicemails that you've not picked up? I am currently on 38. Yes? How many would you have had 3 years ago? A lot less. Okay, so this is the millennials, what they're doing, and they don't like phoning, and the etiquette is changing. But the question is, why does it matter? Why is this important in recruiting any way, shape, or form? The classic thing is the candidate scarcity. You go back to, that 80% of all recruitment companies are saying this is their biggest issue they're dealing with at the moment. And let's go back to these millennials, because they're the ones that you're going to have to attract. And the candidate scarcity is increasing the pressure on speed again. The power is shifting to the candidate, I would argue. But you need to drive a better candidate experience. I hear this wherever I go around the show and I start talking to recruiters. Okay, and if you want good candidate experience, you need to speak their language. And if you're not messaging people, if you are phoning them, often in the first instance, you're speaking in foreign tongues. And often, cold calling someone as opposed to sending them a message first saying, hi, are you free for a chat later? Can we talk about this? I'll give you a call on Wednesday. That is the etiquette. And you're ignoring it. So many people are ignoring it. And so this is why it really matters. Now, our sales team have been saying to us, because today we're launching a messaging platform, funnily enough. And our sales team is saying, we want an SMS platform. We need SMS. Everyone wants SMS. And we looked at it and realized that they were wrong. It's not actually what we've built. Because if you go and see our customers and go around recruitment companies, yes, people are sending SMSs and texts to people. But that's not really where it starts. It starts that they're all messaging each other internally. There's a whole instant messaging thing going on. You could be using Skype, you could be using Hangouts, you could be using Slack. There's a host of them. Okay? And so they're all messaging each other. Yes, they are sending SMS, but they're also contacting people on a whole pile of other social media. The statistics up here is 22 billion SMSs a day. But just Facebook and WhatsApp alone sends 66 billion, 3 times as many. And that's just 2 social media channels. You add in LinkedIn, Skype, Twitter, Facebook, and all the others. It's dwarfing SMS. And the problem you've got with is this. You don't know what your staff are doing right now. And I go back to this issue. The thing I started from this, that it's really important to tie communications and data back to each other. And if you go and walk around your companies and look at your staff on their mobile phones, what are they actually doing? Are they doing work? Are they updating their Facebook page? Are they texting somebody? Or are they talking to a candidate on WhatsApp or on Twitter or could be sending a text? You really don't know, and none of it is stored in the CRM. I was one of the earlier presentations I sat in, and the expression was used again and again. If it's not in Bullhorn, if it's not in the CRM, it doesn't exist. None of this communication is in Bullhorn. And the problem you've got is where's that relationship being built? Is it built with your brand and your company? Or is it a relationship between them and your recruiter's mobile phone? And when they leave, and that does happen in this industry occasionally, and go and work for the competition, they take their mobile phone with them. You have no idea where they've got to, what they were doing, what was said. There's no record of it in any way, shape, or form. And they've just taken that entire conversation and all their contacts to your competition. That's where the real problem lies. I mean, how about as a silly idea? Next time someone leaves, say, tell you what, do you want to keep your email address for the next 6 months and take your phone with you? Go on, just in case someone rings. Yeah? Would you do that? No, you lock them out your systems the second they're out the door. But their mobile phone goes with them, and unless you can provide another way of communicating to those people, you can't say you don't do it. You can't say you're not allowed to use your phone, because that's how people want to communicate. They know that, and they're communicating that way. But you can't stop them doing it because you've not given them a choice. And the situation we've got is, I think, going to get an awful lot worse. Messaging is not going to go away. There's not something you can ignore. It's not a fad, I don't think. You actually see what's going on. Apple are launching a thing called Apple Business, or iMessage for Business. And it's great. They've got 4 or 5 companies have signed up for it, and now, which are the Salesforce and Zendesk and a couple of others. And but now companies can actually message straight through from, say, Apple Maps or from websites. So that is actually a picture of, this is Hilton, on an iPhone, and you can message straight from the phone. It's another messaging platform. But of course, that goes straight to someone's iPhone, or it could go to a separate app, but it's not stored in the CRM. And Google getting into the act too, Google's actually got a problem, or had a problem for some time. And that is that Apple own the hardware and the software. So iMessenger, I can send you dancing bears. English politicians seem to want to send other parts of their body to pictures to people. But you can send, it's rich communications. Android can't do that, which is why they're still using SMS. Now, SMS has been a wall of money for the networks for ages, and so they haven't wanted to change it. And there's an argument that says that if they had managed to change it earlier, WhatsApp wouldn't exist. The reason why things like WhatsApp exist is because Android and SMS is so limited in what it does. But they've fixed it. They've got 60 carriers now signing up to this product, this RCS, Rich Communication Service, which they are calling, I think it's Android Messenger or Android Chat. And in the same way as you can with Apple, you can now send people maps and details and the rest of it. But again, none of it's in the CRM. There's actually talk as well, is that are they going to be copying, and they're probably likely to, Apple, and so that you'll be able to text directly from Google Maps, or indeed from search results. So Google Jobs, you may actually just start a text message or an SMS message, or message message, straight from there to their app. There's another app. And we think that's probably going to happen. We're actually integrating with them at the moment. But then you've got the job boards. There's more messaging. Okay, Monster launched the messaging hub. There's companies here, there's a company called, I think it's Fresh Recruit, that actually is offering messaging from job boards. We're interested in integrating with them. And there's a growing number of chatbots. We all hear of Mia and the rest of it. Some of these are working on AI. But a point comes where they actually need to go back and speak to a human being. And again, none of that conversation is being captured anywhere. It's all going to a mobile phone or a separate app. And there's another problem, and it's a really big problem, I think. Before I get there, I believe that messaging is likely to become the predominant method of communication. How's that for a statement? It probably already is, actually, in some respects, in the youth. I think it certainly will do for starting conversations in the first place. So it's not going to go away. But the other problem is this. Everything nowadays comes with messaging. There are hundreds of them. I've talked about Skype. I've talked about Slack. I've talked about Twitter. Is Nico here in the room? He contacted me on holiday day, messaging me on Instagram. Everything comes with, and every single one of these has a separate interface. Just think about your own life. Well, there's not that many millennials here, but your own working life. Hands up those who has more than 2 messaging apps open on their desktop at any one time. 3? 5? Still a few? And there's more coming. How many more can you handle? How do you pull this lot all together? So those are the problems, and this is what I think we need to look for. And I will talk about what we are building, and we've not finished it yet. But this is where we're going. Is that first of all, you need something to pull all them back together again. You need a unified, single interface. So actually what we've launched today is internal messaging and SMS. But we are adding on to it, but I'm just explaining this is what I think people need to do, the social media channels. And yeah, we've got Facebook, we've got WhatsApp, rest of it. But we're adding on social media channels. But also you may be talking to people through your website. That we need to pull them back together again. If I bring it back to telco terms, it's a little bit like there isn't a switchboard. You've got a Twitter phone, you've got a Skype phone, you've got a WhatsApp phone, you've got an SMS phone. No one's pulled them together on a switchboard and produced them in one single handset. That's, I think, what the industry needs to do, and we need to address the situation by doing it. It's what we are trying to build at the moment, okay? And it's only by pulling the stuff together that, first of all, you know how to communicate with somebody, but it gives you the ability to collaborate across the whole lot. But what you have to do, no matter what, is push it into the CRM. I'm talking about Bullhorn here, but you need to integrate it into the CRM so that you can see those conversations, so you are linking the data and the communications back together again. And also, as it's important, you can search it so that other members of staff, if they've got looking for a job or a candidate, can see that relationship's going on, to see whether you've spoken to them or not. Because there's no visibility. If I'm sending someone messages on my phone, and someone else, another person, same company, has got no idea, they might start another conversation, and you're just looking competent. So that's what you need to pull the whole thing back together and store them, in a searchable fashion. And again, a number of people try to do this, and Bullhorn has an SMS platform, and other ones I've seen too. But it's sort of the message was sent or the message received, and they're not joined up. We've all got iPhones or Android. You need to be a he said, she said conversation that you can review back. It needs to be demonstrated and seen in a way that it is easy to clear following the conversation, as opposed to having to open and close lots of little notes to find out what happened next. It may be more exciting, but it takes an awfully long time. Okay, so that is, I think, what you have to do. Long and short, is this good news or is it bad news? I don't think it is particularly one or the other, actually. It's news, it's a thing, it's happening. It ain't going to go away, and it's going to get worse. And the other thing which I think that we need to do for people is not only provide this integrated messaging app for your desktop, but also on people's phones. Because when someone leaves, you want to be able to delete that information. You want to be able to take that and wipe that app, because you've got a copy of it already. So they don't take that information with you. And I think this is really important. The risk you've got is ignoring this, because your staff are already doing it. They're already talking to people, and they're talking, of course they do, because they're trying to earn commission. They're talking to people in the way that people want to be spoken to, or they're messaging people in the way they want to be messaged to. So it's not going to go away, and I think you really need to start looking at how to pull that back together again. There's other people as us to do it, but I think if you ignore it, it's a risk, because the workforce of today, the youth of today, want to communicate this way. Anyway, that's really, I think, kind of what I want to say about this. I've got one other question for you. How many people now have sent a message during the thing? Less. That's unusual. Thank you very much for your time.